exist. That being said, I think what folks who would like to call themselves yoga teachers have not dove into, right, is the way that yoga has been used and weaponized in order to create division and divide, and to essentially cater to one population of people rather than what its intention is for, is to make things loving and just and equitable and equal for all people. Take, for instance, during World War II, there's two conversations, right, on 2 points in history that I think are worth mentioning in this short little blip I'm going to give you all. The first, right, is when Nazi Germany essentially took the swastika, and it is from ancient yoga tradition and teaching, and they took it and they created it and co-opted it, stole it, and they made it a symbol of their hate and their division, right? Which is something that it was never intended for. Second example is there was a gentleman out of Denmark whose name is escaping me right now. But he essentially used yoga and created what people would like to call primitive gymnastics. And primitive gymnastics was designed to create a stronger Aryan race. Now, and this also happened during World War II. So the saying that all yoga is good yoga is a completely misled and misguided saying. Now, yoga in its true context is good. Yoga that has been stolen and misused in a hateful context is bad. I am also going to say that if folks have voted for Trump in this election or election prior, right, I do not feel that you can call yourself a yoga teacher, right? I also do not necessarily know if you can call yourself a yoga practitioner, because there is a deep misguidance that has happened, right? And a lack of information, right? And a question of moral compass in terms of who you are actually putting first. Now, I think a lot of people would argue that yoga is about putting yourself first, but not from a greedy state of being or state of mind, y'all. From a state of well-being, sure, that we can only be well. Not everyone can be well until we are well. I get that. However, when your state of wellness, right, is coupled with stealing from other people, right, is coupled with genocide, is coupled with a concept around manifest destiny, that is incredibly problematic, y'all. And there is nothing within yogic teaching, traditional yogic teaching, and I would take it even back to Comedics with black women in Africa and away from a Brahmin spectrum that happened in India, right? Because even then, yoga was taken and it became divisive, and within the caste systems as well, and folks who were, quote, practicing yoga, right, who were of lighter skin in India, right, also stole, and they also subjugated people and oppressed people for the practice of the teaching, because they didn't think, because they were a lower caste, they did not have that type of access to it, right? So, all that being said, y'all, I encourage that if you call yourself a yoga teacher, that you need to do your research. It is a part of the 8 limbs. And to understand, too, that whenever there is civil unrest, that is when there is a resurgence, if you look at the timeline, of yoga, right? Like in all things, it can go one way or it can go the other way. And I would encourage everybody to be on the right side of history rather than on the Reich side of history. Peace and love, y'all.